My life didn't change because of luck. It changed because of a decision. 1 week, 7 days, not a grand revolution, not a flashy breakthrough, just a moment of clarity when I looked straight at myself and asked, how much longer am I going to live like this? Maybe you've been there too. Waking up each morning with a heavy body, a tired mind, and a list of should-haves left unfinished from the week before. You say you want to change, you promise to start fresh on Monday, but then everything repeats. You set goals, make plans, feel excited for a few hours, only to get pulled back into the old cycle. Procrastination, distraction, regret, then more promises. I lived in that loop for years, not because I didn't want to change, but because I kept starting the wrong way. We often think that change must come with big actions. Strict diets, daily workouts, reading a book a week, overhauling our entire routine. But it was exactly this all-or-nothing mindset that kept me stuck in stagnation. Then one day, I decided to do the opposite. No more chasing perfection. No more trying to change everything. I simply chose 5 small habits, not flashy, not complicated, and committed to doing them for just 7 days, and the miracle was this. Within that single week, I didn't just reclaim my time and energy, I regained my belief in myself. I'm not sharing this to boast or to claim credit. I'm sharing this so you understand something important. Change doesn't have to be dramatic. It just needs to be in the right direction, with consistency. You don't need a month. You don't need a year. You just need 1 week. A week where you truly show up, truly commit, and actually do what you say. Don't wait until you feel ready. Readiness never arrives. You must begin while you still doubt, still fear, still feel uncertain. And then each small step will slowly erase the gap between who you are and who you want to become. The first habit I adopted, and the one I want you to start with, is very simple. Choose one habit that truly matters to you and repeat it every day for 7 days. Don't pick 10 things. Don't create a long list that overwhelms you. Just one. One small action, but done right. Because what I discovered is this. You don't need 10 habits. You just need one habit repeated 10 times. It's repetition that builds strength. It's consistency that creates confidence. I remember telling myself, if I can do this every day for 1 week, I'll know I can do anything. And indeed, from that one small action, I began to change the way I saw myself. I no longer said, I'm trying to change. I started saying, this is who I am. Habits don't just change your schedule, they change your identity. And when your identity shifts, your life changes. You can start by reading 10 pages of a book each day, or walking for 5 minutes, or drinking a glass of warm water every morning, or waking up 15 minutes earlier. The key is this. Don't choose something so difficult that your mind finds an excuse not to do it. Choose something so simple that your brain can't say no. A small but steady action, just like how James Clear began his career by writing 1 page a day, and from that became one of the most influential voices in personal development. Success doesn't come from one intense push. It comes from small actions repeated relentlessly. And the last thing I want you to remember is this. The very first habit you need to build isn't reading or exercising or waking up early. The first and most important habit is to show up for yourself. No matter if you're tired that day or busy or uninspired, you still do it. And that is what builds the foundation upon which you can grow anything else. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're tired of making promises that never become reality, then try something truly simple. Pick one small habit. Do it every day for just 7 days. You don't have to change your whole life at once. You just need to begin with enough seriousness, enough consistency to prove to yourself that you still have the power to shift. And sometimes just one small decision like that is exactly what opens the door to an entirely new chapter in your life. When I began my journey of personal transformation, there was one mistake I made, a mistake I know many others repeat every single day. That mistake was trying to change too many things at once. The moment we feel a spark of inspiration, we immediately write down a long list. Improved sleep, eat healthier, exercise, read more, meditate, manage finances, strengthen relationships. All of them are good intentions, but trying to do everything at once ends up making us stick with nothing. I've been in that place where everything begins with determination, but nothing lasts long enough to become a result. And then, when everything falls apart, you return to square one, carrying that same sense of failure. That's why in that very first week, I decided to go against my usual instinct to take massive action. No big goals, no multitasking, no splitting my mind across too many things. I chose just one habit, one single thing, so small it might seem insignificant. But I knew this: if I could do this one thing consistently for 7 days, if I could overcome my own tendency to scatter, I would prove to myself that I had the ability to take back control of my life. That habit could be anything that fits you. 10 minutes of reading, 5 minutes of movement, drinking water on schedule, journaling, or simply going to bed before 11 p.m. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it must be small enough that you have no excuse to delay it, and relevant enough that you know it's moving you toward the person you want to become. I call this the principle of strategic focus. Because what causes us to fail is not a lack of effort. It's scattered effort. An arrow can pierce its target if it's aimed well and shot at the right moment. But if you hold a handful of arrows and throw them all at once without a clear direction, they'll land everywhere and mean nothing. Choosing one habit is how you re-aim your focus. It's how you train your concentration before you pursue success. I remember that first day clearly. I chose to write down 3 things I was grateful for each morning, not because I wanted to become an optimist in a week, but because I wanted to retrain my mind to start each day with a sense of intention and positivity instead of getting swept up in chaos and reactivity. Just 3 short lines. But within a few days, I began to notice the difference. I no longer started my mornings feeling rushed. I became calmer, lighter, and that inner shift brought about many other changes in my schedule, not because I tried to do more, but because my mindset had changed. What matters isn't the size of the habit, it's the repetition. You don't need to do something impressive in a single day. You need to do that small thing over and over until it becomes part of who you are. Remember this: you don't need 10 habits, you need one habit repeated 10 times, because it's consistency that reshapes identity. You're no longer someone who's trying to change. You become someone who is living differently every day. The biggest impressed by the journey of James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. Before he became a major name in the field of personal development, he didn't start with a big strategy or an ambitious goal. He simply started with one thing: writing 1 page a day. It didn't matter how long it was or whether anyone praised it. He just committed to writing. And that single action, done consistently and without interruption, transformed him from an ordinary person into one of the most influential voices in the world. That showed me clearly: power doesn't come from size, but from depth, not from momentary inspiration, but from silent repetition. And if you want to start today, I have one simple suggestion: choose an action so easy that you can't justify not doing it. Don't aim for something grand. Just make sure it aligns with the person you want to become. For example, if you want to become someone who loves learning, commit to reading 5 to 10 pages a day. If you want to build an active lifestyle, commit to 5 minutes of exercise. If you want to master your mornings, wake up just 15 minutes earlier and spend that time in quiet before your day begins. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you send a silent message to your subconscious: I can trust myself. And the beautiful part is, once you keep it for 3 days, then 5 days, then a full week, you'll begin to see yourself through new eyes. No longer someone who makes promises, then breaks them. No longer someone who waits for inspiration. You become someone who shows up, who follows through, who builds something lasting from small beginnings. And that inner transformation becomes the foundation for all greater changes to come. So if you're surrounded by too many options, unsure where to start, Pause. Take a deep breath. Place your hand on your chest and ask, what is the one single action I know if I do it every day, I'll slowly become the person I deeply desire to be? Then, don't write another list. Don't download another app. Don't draw another diagram. Just start with that today and stick to it long enough, consistently enough for you to witness your own transformation, not just in your schedule, but in the way you see yourself. And at that point, you won't need anyone to push you. You won't need more motivation from the outside, because you will have begun to believe, I can. And from the moment you believe in yourself, you are no longer limited. You've truly begun. There was one truth I had to face for a long time before I could admit it. Most of the times I failed to change, it wasn't because I lacked the ability. It was because I was lying to myself. I said I was busy, but the truth was I didn't prioritize. I told myself I would start when I had more time, but I let that time slip away on meaningless things. I made excuses that I needed more motivation, more knowledge, more support, but the truth was I was just avoiding commitment. Because when you're truly ready to change, you don't search for excuses, you search for a way. And then came a moment when I could no longer live in illusion. I looked at myself without defensiveness, without justification, and asked, am I really living in alignment with what I say? The answer hurt. But that pain was the beginning of true transformation, because you can only change something once you're willing to look at it directly. You can't heal a wound that you're still denying exists. We all have promises we've made in a burst of inspiration. To wake up early, to take care of our health, to learn something new, to become more disciplined. But when the excitement fades, we fall back into the same loop. Procrastination, excuses, and then forgiving ourselves too easily. And each broken promise becomes a tiny cut into our inner trust. Gradually, you stop believing in your own words. You begin to doubt yourself. Losing faith in others is one thing, but losing faith in yourself, that's when you lose the very key to change. I've been there. I've said, I'll start tomorrow more times than I can count. But that tomorrow never came. Each time I comforted myself with a seemingly illogical reason, but deep down, I knew I was just avoiding. Then one quiet evening, no applause, no encouragement, I simply sat alone and decided, I won't talk anymore, I'll just do. I stopped setting more goals, stopped telling others about my plans. I quietly chose one thing, started doing it, and followed through. No one needed to know, no recognition needed, and that silence became my strength. Because when you're no longer trying to impress anyone else, you start living more truthfully with yourself. When you stop saying things you're not ready to act on, you begin to respect your own words more. And from there, even the smallest actions carry deep meaning, because they are proof of true commitment. You don't need to shout to the world that you're changing. Real change doesn't need noise. It only needs consistency. It needs you to show up every single day for your own life. I learned that the most dangerous self-deception isn't in what we say, it's in our habits. The times you say you don't have time, yet spend hours scrolling on your phone. The times you say you'll start Monday, then push it to the next week. Those patterns don't just slow you down, they do something worse. They erode the trust you have in yourself, and no meaningful growth can happen without that foundation of inner trust. So I want to ask you, and I hope you pause for a second and really think, how many of the promises you've made have you actually followed through on? Not to make you feel guilty, but to help you start from a place of truth. No decoration, no illusion, because only when you stop playing the game of hiding from yourself can you truly open the door to change. You don't need to tell the world. You just need to be honest with one person. The one looking back at you in the mirror each morning. I used to think I needed more discipline, but no, what I really needed was honesty. Honesty about what I was doing, honesty about what I was avoiding. And when I started from the truth, even if it was hard to hear, I could finally choose the right thing to do. Only from there could I begin to build something solid. There is no foundation stronger than sincerity, because you can fall, but if you're honest with yourself, you will rise again the right way. I'm not telling you this to say I've conquered everything or that I'm perfect now. I'm telling you this so you understand. The true starting point isn't when you have enough motivation. It's not when you find the perfect system. It's when you pause, look yourself in the eye and say, I've had enough. I will stop lying to myself. And only from that moment can the habits you build truly have a soul. Because they're no longer masks you wear to feel in control. They're real actions that come from an internal commitment. If you're searching for the right move, for a new beginning, I'm not going to suggest something complicated. I'll offer just one thing. Live in alignment with what you say. If you say you'll wake up early, get up. If you say you'll exercise, step outside. If you say you want to change, choose one small thing and do it today. No witnesses needed, no applause required, just you knowing you're no longer lying to yourself. And that, right there, is where change begins. I used to think that in order to change my life, I needed a major turning point, a breakthrough moment, a force strong enough to instantly shift everything, just like in the movies, when the main character experiences something dramatic and suddenly becomes ultra-disciplined, ultra-successful. But real life doesn't work that way. There's no spotlight, no dramatic soundtrack, just you, with daily choices that either pull you forward or silently push you backward. And it was there that I realized a truth very few people want to admit. Success doesn't come from a grand moment, but from a small action repeated with consistency. I didn't fail because I didn't know what I needed to do. I failed because I couldn't sustain those small things every day. I started with excitement, but after a few days, when the emotion faded and results hadn't appeared, I gave up. Like that, every goal I set became another unfinished plan, and I carried a quiet sense of disappointment within. Until I changed my perspective. I stopped asking, how can I achieve something big, and started asking myself, what's the smallest thing I can do today? I remembered a very simple principle once shared by Jerry Seinfeld, one of the most successful comedians in America. Every day he wrote a joke. He didn't have to be good, didn't have to be perfect. He just had to show up and write. Then he would mark an X on his calendar. Each day he wrote another X. And gradually he built a chain of unbroken days. His rule was simple. Don't break the chain. And through that steady repetition, he didn't just build skill, he built resilience, reputation, and a career. When I applied that principle to my own life, everything started to change. I no longer chased motivation. I didn't wait for the perfect day. I simply chose one small action, committed to it daily, and tracked the journey with little dots. Each day, each mark, each presence. And you know what? That consistency, though small, brought an oddly strong sense of stability, because for the first time in years, I felt like I truly had control over a part of my life. The difference doesn't come from intensity, it comes from frequency. You could work 8 hours in one day, but if you do nothing for the next 29 days, there will be no result. Meanwhile, if you spend just 30 minutes a day, every day for a month, you'll build momentum, skill, and confidence. Small actions are like drops of water falling on stone. One drop means nothing, but thousands, tens of thousands of drops day after day, they leave an imprint. That is the power of repetition. I realize that most people don't fail because they don't try. They fail because they expect too much of themselves at once, then collapse from exhaustion. We don't need to overhaul our entire lives in a single day. We just need to win against ourselves today. One action, one right choice, one kept promise. That alone is success. Think of one area in your life you want to improve. Maybe it's health, finances, focus, or relationships. Now, instead of creating a massive plan, ask yourself, What can I do every day in just 5-10 minutes to improve this area? It could be drinking enough water, calling a loved one, writing in a finance journal, or doing a few exercises. What matters isn't the scale, but the consistency. One thing done daily, without force, without pain, will create a habit. And habits are the foundation of all transformation. I also learned a valuable lesson: track what you do. Every action, no matter how small, when recorded, creates a sense of progress. I use a small notebook to mark the days I stick to my commitment. Every time I look back at that chain of marks, I don't just see consistency, I see growth. Some days I'm tired. Some days I want to quit. But I remember the promise I made to myself, and I come back. Not because the circumstances are ideal, but because I've built a new standard to show up, regardless of how I feel. You don't need to feel good enough to take action. You just need to act. And that feeling of being enough will come later. The most dangerous thing isn't that you're not doing enough, it's that you don't even start because you think, I can't do it perfectly today. Let go of perfection, just do, just repeat, just don't quit. And finally, I want you to understand this: every small action you repeat today is a declaration to the universe that you are serious about your life. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are building inner trust. You are becoming the most reliable person in your own life, and that, more than any instant result, is what will change everything. So if you want to begin, start small. But start now. The first action can be simple. Turn off your phone 15 minutes earlier, take a walk around the block, write one line of gratitude, or drink a glass of warm water. Whatever it is, do it today. Then do it again tomorrow, and again the day after. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up every day. And then, when you look back, not with surprise, but with gratitude, because it was those small things repeated that quietly built a better version of you. Day by day, breath by breath, one steady decision at a time. I used to think that belief was something passed down from others, or something that appeared only after major success, that you had to achieve something big before you could truly believe in yourself. But no, the truth is much simpler than that. Belief isn't a reward. It is the result of doing the small things you once promised yourself and not giving up. Every time I followed through on a small action I had committed to, even when no one saw it, when there was no applause, when only I knew, I could feel something growing inside me, the trust I was building with myself. It might have been a morning when I got up on time, just as I said I would, a time when I turned down a slice of cake I didn't need, a day when I finished reading 10 pages, even though my mind was tired. Taken individually, these actions seemed trivial, but repeated every day, quietly and consistently, they became like small bricks stacked upon one another, gradually forming a solid foundation. The foundation of inner trust, not the kind of belief that depends on how others see you, but the kind that lets you go to sleep with peace in your heart, knowing you didn't back down from yourself today. True belief doesn't come from how fast you succeed. It comes from whether or not you keep your word when no one's watching. Because the moments when no one is there to witness, that is the most honest test of your discipline and character. I went through a period where each night as I lay down, I felt a vague emptiness inside. Not because I hadn't accomplished anything grand, but because I knew I hadn't done what I said I would. I had quietly but persistently broken promises to myself. And that slowly eroded my self-respect, bit by bit. Then I changed. Not because of a sudden wave of motivation, but because I began to keep small promises. At first, 3 days in a row, then 5, then 7, 10. And when I made it past that stage of I'm no longer excited, but I still do it, I realized I could trust myself now. I was no longer relying on fleeting emotion. I had learned to keep moving, even in silence. And from that moment, I no longer needed anyone else to validate me, because I had become the first person to recognize my own effort every day. We tend to judge ourselves too harshly. We see our flaws too easily, compare ourselves to others too quickly, blame ourselves too soon for not doing something remarkable. But there's something I want you to remember. Every small action repeated with intention is a declaration, I'm serious about my life. It's how you step out of self-doubt and into a new space where you no longer need to prove anything, only to show up. One thing I've learned is when you begin to act in alignment with your words, you're not just building belief. You're shaping a new identity. You no longer say, I'm trying to change. You begin to say, through action, this is who I am. And from that identity, you make decisions more easily, choose more clearly, say no more firmly, because you know who you are. The belief you build is not something you search for outside. It's the very mold of the person you're becoming. I once thought I needed others to believe in me before I could move forward, but as it turns out, what I truly needed was to believe in myself first. Because if you still doubt yourself, no matter how much belief the world places in you, you won't be able to carry it. But if you are steady from within, you won't need to wait for applause to keep going. You keep going because you know you're on the right path. And that belief doesn't come from loud victories. It comes from the quiet choices you repeat every day. If you've ever doubted yourself, if you've ever thought you couldn't change, I invite you to try one thing. Don't try to do anything big this week. Just do one small thing, repeated for 7 days. Record each time you do it. Every night before bed, look at your presence in that day. If you kept your promise, even the smallest one, acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I did it. And let that feeling sink deep into your mind. It's not a petty act. It's a ritual of restoring trust. Success doesn't come from dramatic declarations. It comes from silent moments, when you quietly do what you said you would. When you stay consistent in what others consider small, you're cultivating a power no one can take from you, the power of self-confidence born from real lived experience. And that will take you further than any strategy, plan, or advice ever could. I can't promise that you'll see massive changes after 1 week, but I can promise this. If you keep even a small promise to yourself, repeated for 7 days, you will feel something shifting. Maybe it's the way you talk to others. Maybe it's how you look at yourself in the mirror. Maybe it's a new calmness when facing a decision. These changes won't be loud, but they will be real. And if you continue keeping those small promises for another week and another, you won't just believe in yourself. You'll become someone others believe in too, because you will radiate something that doesn't need to be said. You are trustworthy because you began with the small things. There was something that silently drained so much of my time, energy, and motivation for years without me even realizing it. It wasn't loud, it wasn't threatening, and it didn't cause any dramatic shock. On the contrary, it was subtle, familiar, seeping into every moment of the day and wearing me down gently. That was distraction. You may have experienced it too. You start your day with a clear intention. Today will be the day you truly focus. You'll get things done. You'll study, write, take action. But just a few minutes in, a phone notification, a short video, a message, a casual click, and you drift away from your original plan without even noticing. By the time you look back, an hour has passed, then 2, and the whole day ends with the feeling, I was so busy, yet I didn't really move forward. I used to live like that, feeling exhausted but unable to pinpoint exactly what caused it. It wasn't that the work was too hard or that I didn't have enough time. It was that I had allowed my attention to leak out day by day, bit by bit, through things so small I assumed they were harmless. But the truth is, if you don't protect your focus, there will always be someone or something ready to steal it. And when your focus is stolen, you lose more than a few minutes. You lose creative flow. You lose inner connection. You lose control. I realize that in today's world, focus is no longer a given. It's a skill. And like every other skill, you must train it, protect it, and intentionally preserve it. I began asking myself one question: what is taking away most of my attention throughout the day? It wasn't just the phone. It was the reflexive habits. Opening emails the moment I logged in, turning on YouTube the second I sat down to work, checking social media just as I started thinking. I no longer remembered what it felt like to do one thing in a deep state, where you're fully connected to your task, undistracted, not pulled in every direction by trivial things. So I decided to create a new habit, designating a time block each day just for deep work. I called it a focus block, a period of 30 to 90 minutes each day during which I committed to letting nothing interrupt me. No phone, no extra tabs, no scrolling, just me and the most important task of the day. At first, it was genuinely hard. I realized I was more addicted to distraction than I thought. I felt restless just a few minutes into not checking my phone, but I stuck with it, and after around 3 to 5 days, I began to notice a change. My mind became clearer, my time more effective, and most importantly, I felt like I was finally back in control. Focus doesn't just help you get more done, it helps you live more deeply. You no longer drift toward easy distractions. You begin to rediscover the feeling of being immersed in something, whether it's learning, writing, working, or simply enjoying a quiet moment without interruption. Focus is the gateway to accessing the depth of life, and it cannot exist if you're constantly being yanked by notifications, messages, or meaningless screen content. I also began cleaning up my environment, turning off unnecessary notifications, moving my phone out of sight while working, using apps to block distracting websites, and most importantly, informing the people closest to me that this time, block is sacred. No one will blame you for protecting your focus for something meaningful. But if you don't speak up, don't blame the world for always intruding. Others will only respect your boundaries once you respect them first. One fascinating realization was this: when you truly focus, you don't need as much time as you think to complete a task. I used to spend an entire morning writing a short paragraph because I'd get interrupted every few lines. But when I locked in my attention for a set period, I found I could accomplish 2 or 3 times the result in half the time. Focus isn't just about discipline, it's a lever. It multiplies the value of every minute you live because you are fully present, and not just in work. Focus also changes the way you live in every area. When I stopped checking my phone during time with friends, I noticed our conversations became deeper. When I paid real attention to eating, resting, and sleeping, instead of multitasking with screens, I felt my body recover faster. Focus is a gift you give to yourself. It's how you say to life, I honor every moment passing through me. If you feel like you're busy but not progressing, if each day leaves you drained yet unsatisfied, maybe it's not because you're not doing enough, but because you're too scattered. So I suggest this: try starting with just one focus block each day, just 30 minutes. Turn everything off. Choose one important task. Do it fully, no interruptions, no multitasking, no checking your phone. You'll be surprised by your own power when nothing is pulling you away. And if you maintain that long enough, you won't just finish more, you'll live more deeply, more mindfully, and more deliberately in your daily journey. Focus, to me, is no longer a choice. It's a life strategy, a small habit, but a clear line between someone being swept through life and someone truly in command of it. And if you're looking for a change that can make an immediate impact, this is the habit to begin with. Because when you reclaim your attention, you're reclaiming the steering wheel of your entire life. I used to believe that focus was an inborn trait, that some people were simply born with an extraordinary ability to concentrate, and I wasn't one of them. I looked at people who could sit for hours to study, work, or create without getting pulled away by their phones or noise, and I concluded, they're the disciplined type. I'm just not like that. But the more I experienced and observed, the more I realized focus is not a gift given to a lucky few. It's a skill, a habit. And above all, it's a deliberate choice repeated through discipline. The difference between someone who is easily distracted and someone who can work deeply doesn't lie in brain structure. It lies in the rules they set for themselves and how faithfully they keep those rules every day. No one wakes up in the morning and suddenly becomes a more focused version of themselves. Focus is something you build, not something you wait for. You don't need more inspiration. You need discipline. And discipline, as I've learned, isn't harsh or punishing. It is the highest act of love you can give yourself, because you believe your life is worth being devoted to what truly matters. I began to train my focus the way one would train a muscle. I didn't try to do anything grand. I didn't set a goal of sitting for 3 hours without distraction. I simply chose a small window, 25 to 30 minutes. And within that time, I promised myself no checking my phone, no opening extra task, no stepping away from the task. And when I succeeded, I'd take a short break, then repeat. At first, it was truly difficult. My mind rebelled. I felt restless. I discovered that I had become so accustomed to being interrupted that when nothing intruded, I didn't know what to do. But then I pushed through those early days. I learned how to breathe slowly, how to return to the present moment each time my mind wandered. I learned to leave my phone in another room. I learned to set clear rules for my working hours. No social media, no email, no notifications. I learned to begin one task and finish it before moving on to the next. These seemingly small steps eventually became the foundation of something much greater, a deep presence in whatever I was doing. You might think you're not capable of long focus, but ask yourself honestly, have you ever really trained for it? Or have you just existed in a world full of distractions and assumed that was your nature? We can't expect ourselves to focus if we constantly leave the door open to interruption. Focus isn't just something you do in your mind. It's how you design your environment. It's about saying no to noise. It's about choosing to create space for depth. It's about sitting down and gently reminding yourself, I'm here, and I'm doing this, not that. I once thought I wasn't a persistent person, but it was through the practice of daily focus that I learned my greatest lesson in consistency. Because to stay focused, you have to overcome the smallest urges, the unconscious phone check, the temptation to switch to something easier, the habit of putting off what's important. And every time you overcome one of those urges, you're not just improving your productivity, you're reforging your inner strength. You're telling yourself, I am the one in control of my actions, not a victim of habit. Focus is also a way of living. When I learned to focus at work, I began to apply that to everything else. I focused on the person speaking to me instead of zoning out with my phone. I focused on meals instead of eating while scrolling. I focused on sleep instead of letting my mind be dragged around by nonsense before bed. And then I realized focus didn't just help me get more done, it helped me live better, less distracted, less regretful, less of that feeling of being busy but empty. I know you've had moments of discipline too, moments when you were truly focused, worked deeply, and felt like the best version of yourself. The problem isn't that you don't know how. The problem is that you haven't created the conditions for it to happen often. So start today. Set one rule for your focus. It doesn't need to be complicated. Maybe it's this. Every morning before 9 a.m., I'll spend 45 minutes on my most important task without interruption. Or every evening, I'll read for 30 minutes without touching my phone, then follow through, regardless of how you feel. And when you do, acknowledge it. Rebuild trust. Keep doing it until it becomes part of you. Focus doesn't come from motivation. It comes from discipline. And discipline, when built the right way, isn't a chain, it's a door to a deeper, clearer, and more meaningful life. Because when you know how to hold yourself to what matters, you're no longer swept away by everything that doesn't. You walk with direction, with rhythm, and with your whole self truly present. Someone who once thought I couldn't focus for more than 10 minutes can do it, So can you. Don't wait until you have time. Don't wait for your mind to be perfect. Start training your focus as an act of love toward your own future, day by day, step by step, decision by decision. And then you'll not only find yourself achieving more, you'll find yourself becoming quieter, clearer, and steadier, not because of a rush of inspiration, but because of the discipline you patiently built one day at a time. For a long time, I saw health as something I should have, not something I must have. I thought that as long as I was young, could handle pressure, and stayed alert, I was good to keep going. And like many others, I told myself, I'll take care of my health later when things are more stable, when I'm less busy. But the more I lived, the more I worked, the more I pushed up against the limits of my body and mind, the more I realized one thing. Health isn't a bonus that comes with life. It's the foundation that determines the quality of everything else. We often prioritize work, goals, finances, relationships, and leave health at the bottom of the list. Only when fatigue lingers, sleeplessness becomes chronic, or we reach burnout for no clear reason, do we turn back to look at it, only to find that the body had already signaled us countless times and was starting to retreat. I know this well, because I used to be that person. I used to think drinking too little water, rushing through meals, and sleeping late were no big deal. I used to be proud of working through exhaustion, powering through with coffee and stress as if they were normal parts of success. But nothing is normal about sacrificing your body's vitality to reach your goals. Nothing is worth it if you have to drag yourself forward because you neglected the very foundation that runs everything, your health. I began to change with very small things, not a strict diet or an intense fitness routine. I simply started listening to my body again. I paid attention to how I felt after each meal. I observed my energy levels throughout the day. I noticed my breathing as I climbed stairs. I reflected on how my mood shifted after a deep night's sleep versus a restless one. And the more I tuned in, the more I realized the body is always whispering subtle signals. We've just gotten used to ignoring them. And from that moment, I understood taking care of my health wasn't something I should do. It was the first responsibility I had to fulfill if I was serious about my life. Health isn't just the body. It's the baseline state that makes every other habit possible. You can't stay focused if you're sleep deprived. You can't maintain a positive mindset if you never move. You can't build patience if your body is always running on empty. Everything you want to cultivate, from mindset to attitude, starts with a body that is healthy, flexible, and energized enough to carry you forward each day. And that doesn't come from extremes. It comes from consistency, from small actions repeated with respect. I didn't start with the gym or running. I just started by walking for 15 minutes every morning. I didn't cut out all my favorite foods. I just began by drinking one more glass of warm water each day. I didn't impose a strict schedule on myself. I just learned to turn off my phone 30 minutes before bed and let myself rest properly. The strange thing is, those simple actions triggered a powerful wave of change. Because when you do something kind for your body, you start to feel more deserving of love. And when you begin treating yourself well, you stop tolerating poor treatment in other areas of life. I began to sleep more deeply. My mind became clearer, and most importantly, I worked more efficiently, not because I was pushing harder, but because I no longer had to struggle against fatigue I had created myself. I realized energy isn't something you wait for, it's something you create by the way you live. A healthy body not only helps you endure longer, it helps you feel more worthy. And that feeling is the foundation of all sustainable growth. There's a quote I hold close. Your body is not a thing to push through life. It's a vessel to carry your purpose. The body is not some cheap vehicle you drive endlessly without maintenance. It is the most precious means you have to pursue any dream you want, to meet anyone you love, to fully live every experience you long for. And if you truly value your journey, you can't allow that vessel to rust, crack, or fall apart through neglect. So if you're looking for an easy starting point, a simple action that can create deep transformation. Start with your body. It doesn't have to be a massive change. Just commit. Today, I will do one thing good for my health. Whether it's taking a walk, having a nourishing meal, sleeping 30 minutes earlier, or simply sitting still for a few minutes to breathe deeply. These small actions, when repeated, will teach you one essential truth. You don't need big moves to create change. You just need to treat yourself like someone who matters. I don't know what your goal is, but I know this: you will never reach it if you always feel depleted. And you don't have to wait until health issues arise to start changing. Be proactive. Put your body at the top of your priority list, not for appearance, but for vitality, not to please others, but so you can stand strong with yourself through your toughest days. And then at some point, you'll find yourself walking with more ease, more clarity, more confidence, not because life got less intense, but because you built a strong enough foundation to keep reaching higher without collapsing. Because when health is no longer something you sacrifice, you'll see that it is the force that quietly upholds every dream you carry from the inside out. If there's one thing that completely changed how I see myself in my growth journey, it wasn't a breakthrough moment. It wasn't a grand milestone that earned recognition from others. It was something quiet, small, and often overlooked. I started recording my small wins every day. It sounds so simple, it's easy to dismiss. But that one habit created a powerful wave of transformation, not just in the results I achieved, but in the way I perceived myself. We usually only celebrate big victories: signing a contract, completing a project, losing significant weight, earning a degree, hitting financial goals. But what I discovered is that those big wins rarely happen without the hundreds of small wins we walk through quietly, unnoticed. The problem is, if you only allow yourself to feel worthy when a big result comes, you'll live in a constant state of postponed joy, and you'll lose the most important source of motivation: progress. I used to be like that, always focusing on what I hadn't done, always telling myself I had to try harder, move faster, be better. And because of that, I often ended my day with a sense of not enough, even though I had given my all. It wasn't until I tried something that felt almost silly. Each night before bed, I wrote down one thing I did well that day. It didn't have to be big, just real. Some days it was that I didn't check my phone during work hours. Some days it was that I drank enough water. Some days it was that I spoke kindly to a loved one or stayed calm when I could have reacted impulsively. These things, written down as if just for fun, carried the power to shift how I entered each new day. Because when you start paying attention to small steps, you realize you're not standing still. You are moving. Every good action is a brick you lay down on the foundation of belief. And when you have enough of those bricks, you no longer need anyone to tell you you're doing well, because the evidence is right in front of you. A notebook, a piece of paper, a digital note, a simple app. As long as you write it down, every line is a declaration: I am progressing. And that feeling that you are truly moving forward is what keeps you going. I'm reminded of Benjamin Franklin. Even back in the 18th century, he understood the power of self-tracking. He listed 13 virtues he wanted to develop, like temperance, diligence, humility. And each day he marked whether he lived up to them or not. Over time, he didn't just become a great inventor, but someone who knew himself better than anyone else. Franklin didn't wait for praise from others. He took charge of his own progress and held himself accountable. And what about us? In a world of distractions, where we're easily swept into the highlight reels of others, we need a place to come home to, a place where we can say, I'm rising too, in my own way. Recording small wins isn't just a tracking tool, it's an act of acknowledgement. And when you learn to acknowledge yourself each day, you shift from someone who constantly doubts to someone who knows how to fuel their inner drive in a healthy way. You can start today. Nothing fancy. Grab a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Before bed, ask yourself, what did I do well today? Maybe you didn't snap at your child when you were stressed. Maybe you didn't procrastinate. Maybe you simply showed up fully in one conversation. Whatever it is, write it down, because small things that are acknowledged become powerful fuel. And a string of days like that, tied together with nightly self-trust, creates an entirely new identity. I am someone who keeps my word to myself. I know there will be days when you feel like you've accomplished nothing. Times when you fail, fall off track, lose momentum. But if you've built the habit of recording small wins, you'll have something to look back on, a living record that shows you've overcome before, you've stood up before, you've done the right thing before. And that's enough to keep you going one more day, not with vague hope, but with real proof gathered line by line. There's a special kind of joy that comes from crossing off a completed goal. It's that moment when you feel in control, worthy, and reassured that tomorrow can be better if you continue doing what's right today. The more you act, the more you believe. The more you believe, the more you act. It's a positive loop, and it always starts by noticing the small. And if you're someone who often criticizes yourself, compares yourself, or feels not good enough, this habit is a gift you should give yourself, because it teaches you to look back with gratitude, not judgment, to see what you did do instead of obsessing over what you didn't, to treat yourself more kindly, and through that to become more patient with your journey. So if you truly want to build big belief, don't wait for big achievement. Start by documenting every small step you take. Turn tracking your small wins into a daily ritual. No one else needs to see it. You don't need to show it off. As long as you feel the movement within, that alone is enough to grow your inner drive. And if you stick with this habit long enough, you won't just change how you act, you will change how you see yourself, with steadiness, confidence, and an unshakable sense of trust. Because you'll know that belief didn't come from the outside in. It grew little by little from every line you wrote down. When I look back at those 7 short days, the week I began experimenting with 5 small habits, it still feels a little strange. Not because I did anything extraordinary, not because I suddenly became a different person in just 1 week, but because those 7 days didn't just change my schedule, habits, or energy. They awakened a part of me I had long forgotten. The part that knows I can take control as long as I'm truly committed. Before that, I used to think I needed an entire year to change. I thought I needed help from the outside, more time, more resources, more knowledge. But it all began with one very small thing, a decisive choice, that this week I would not live the same way I always had. And maybe you're at that point too, the place where you know change is needed, but you're unsure where to start. The place where you carry the fatigue of many false starts and unkept promises. The place where you want to believe that things can be different, but that belief has faded over the years. So let me say this, not as someone preaching, but as someone who was once just like you don't need a miracle. You just need 1 week. 1 week of being truly serious with yourself. And week. 7 days. Each day you only need to keep one promise. Not perfectly, not impressively, just consistently. Just show up. Each day, choose one habit you've committed to and do it, whether you feel like it or not. Wake up 15 minutes early. Write down something you're grateful for. Drink enough water. Turn off your phone an hour before bed. Walk for 10 minutes. Record one small win for the day. It may not sound like enough to change your life, but those small things, done consistently, will shape a new identity. I am someone who keeps promises to myself, and that is what changes everything. Not how many books you read, not how many courses you take, but when you begin to believe that you can trust yourself, when you see that you can wake up early even when every part of you wants to sleep in, when you realize you can stay focused even when distractions surround you, when you know you don't need external motivation to act, that's when you're no longer just practicing habits. You're rebuilding trust, You're becoming the kind of person who can carry big goals because you've learned how to honor the smallest of action. I know you may have tried before, you may have failed, but this time, do it differently. Don't do it because you should. Do it as if it were a sacred promise you made to your own heart. Do it quietly, but do it with reverence for the journey you deserve to have. Don't let your past stops keep you from starting again. Your past does not define you. What you choose to do today is what will rewrite your future. And you're not alone. Many people, like me, have started with 1 week, with small actions, with a quiet choice made amidst a noisy world. I want you to understand that big change doesn't begin with perfection. It begins with presence. You don't need to wait until you're strong. It's the starting, the showing up each day. That's what makes you strong. Every small action you repeat today will become a strength you carry for life. Every promise you keep becomes the foundation of a more reliable, more disciplined, more resilient version of you. So choose 1 week, starting tomorrow, or better yet, starting today. Write down 5 small habits you'll commit to. Break them across different days if it feels like too much, but write them down. Place that promise somewhere you'll see every morning. Create a space to focus, a window of time to listen to your body, a pace of life that isn't driven by the crowd. Track every win, every time you show up, every step forward, no matter how small. And after 7 days, look back, not to see if you were perfect, but to feel whether you've become someone you're proud of. I can't promise that you'll change your whole life in 7 days, but I can promise this. If you truly live those 7 days with intention, you won't want to go back to the way you used to live, because you'll have tasted what it feels like to be in control, to be confident, to own every moment of your day. And that feeling will become your new fuel to go further, deeper, stronger. And if you're still reading this, it means there's a part of you, even a small one, that is ready. So don't wait. Stand up, write down 5 things you commit to, and begin. 1 week, 5 habits, 1 new life. I wish you the courage to begin, the patience to stay with it, and the love to never give up on yourself. You deserve a better version of you, and it's waiting for you on the other side of 7 days. What you do today shapes your tomorrow, so start now.